The distress beacon crackled through the communication array of the Pathfinder, pulling Lieutenant David Torres from his navigation calculations. He'd been charting asteroid trajectories in the Kepler 186 system for the past 6 hours, and the sudden interruption made him blink away the fatigue clouding his vision. "This is Rescue Vessel Sanctuary," a deep, resonant voice filled the cockpit. "We have received your distress signal, transmitting docking coordinates. Please confirm you are capable of basic maneuvering." David's fingers flew across the controls, his heart rate settling from panic to mere elevated concern. The Pathfinder had taken damage from unexpected debris 3 hours ago, leaving him stranded with minimal life support and a slowly dying engine. He'd sent the distress call hoping one of the human survey ships would pick it up. Instead, he was about to meet his first Carnathi. "Sanctuary, this is Pathfinder," David responded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Confirming receipt of coordinates. Maneuvering thrusters still operational. ETA 12 minutes. Understood, Pathfinder. We will prepare medical bay and sustenance. Sanctuary out." David's hands tightened on the controls. Carnathi. He'd read the briefings during his xenobiology crash course before deployment. Massive predatory species averaging 3 meters in height. Carnivorous diet. Originated from a high-gravity world where they'd evolved as apex hunters. The images in the database had shown beings that looked like they could snap a human in half without effort, towering figures with powerful builds, sharp features, and eyes that tracked movement with predatory precision. And he was about to be rescued by one. The 12-minute journey felt simultaneously too long and far too short. As the sanctuary grew larger in his viewport, David was struck by the sheer size of the vessel. It dwarfed his small survey ship by at least a factor of 20. The hull was marked with Carnathi script that his translator struggled to parse, but the universal medical symbols were clear enough. A rescue ship. A hospital ship, specifically. That was oddly reassuring. The docking procedure was smooth, automated systems guiding his crippled vessel into an appropriately sized bay. Through the viewport, David could see the sanctuary's interior, vast spaces designed for beings much larger than humans. Everything was scaled up, making him feel like a child entering an adult's world. The airlock cycled with a hiss that seemed louder than it should. David took a deep breath, checking his pressure suit one last time even though sensors confirmed the atmosphere was compatible. His hand hesitated over the door release. "Don't be a coward," he muttered to himself. "They answered your distress call. They're rescuers, not monsters." The door slid open. Standing in the corridor beyond was the largest living being David had ever seen in person. She, and his translator's gender protocols confirmed it was she, stood easily 3.5 meters tall, towering over him with a presence that was simultaneously intimidating and strangely graceful. Her skin had a pale, almost luminescent quality, and her features, while definitely alien, held a sharp, angular beauty. Long white hair was tied back in a practical braid, and her eyes, brilliant amber with vertical pupils, locked onto him with an intensity that made every instinct in his body scream predator. She was, David realized with a mixture of terror and embarrassing awareness, absolutely stunning. "Lieutenant Torres," her voice rumbled through the corridor, and David was surprised by the gentle quality beneath the depth. "I am Chief Medical Officer Carathel. Welcome aboard the Sanctuary. Are you injured?" David had to crane his neck back to meet her eyes. No injuries, just stranded. Thank you for the rescue." Carathel's head tilted slightly, a gesture that might have been curiosity. "You are trembling. Are you certain you are not injured? Shock from the incident, perhaps?" "Just cold," David lied, acutely aware that he was, in fact, trembling, but not from cold or shock. From the primal part of his brain that recognized he was standing in front of a being that evolution had designed to hunt, to chase, to kill. Those amber eyes studied him for a long moment, and David had the unsettling feeling she knew exactly what he was thinking. Then, to his surprise, she knelt down, bringing her face closer to his level. Even kneeling, she was still taller than him. "Lieutenant Tors," she said softly, "I understand that this is your first encounter with a Carnathi. I also understand that our appearance can be unsettling to species who evolved as prey animals rather than predators." David felt heat rush to his face. We're not. Humans occupied a unique evolutionary niche," Carathel continued, her tone taking on the quality of someone reciting from a textbook. "Neither pure predator nor prey, but adaptable omnivores who used tool-making and cooperation to overcome physical limitations. However, your instinctive responses to large predatory species remain encoded in your neurological structure." She stood again, but kept her movements slow and deliberate. "I am not offended by your fear, Lieutenant. It is a natural response. But I would like to assure you that you are safe aboard this vessel. The Carnathi may be carnivorous, but we are not barbaric." "I know that," David said, finding his voice again. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude." "You were not rude, you were honest in your physiological response." A slight curve touched her lips, a smile perhaps. "Come, you require food and rest. Your vessel's logs indicate you have been alone for 3 days with minimal rations." She turned and began walking down the corridor, and David had to jog slightly to keep up with her long strides. As they moved through the ship, he became increasingly aware of the scale of everything around him. Doorways that were appropriately sized for Carathel made him feel like he was walking through a giant's castle. The ceilings soared far above his head. Even the gentle curve of the corridor seemed designed for beings who could cover vast distances with minimal steps. They passed several other Carnathi crew members, each of them massive and imposing, their movements carrying that same predatory grace. David noticed how they all paused when they saw him, their heads turning to track his movement in a way that made his skin prickle. But they also stepped aside, giving him extra space, moderating their gestures to appear less threatening. They were, he realized, trying to make him comfortable. "Here," Carathel said, palming open a door that led into what appeared to be a medical bay. "I have prepared a space scaled for your proportions. It will be more comfortable than trying to navigate Carnathi furniture." David stepped inside and stopped short. One corner of the medical bay had been transformed. There was a human-sized bed, a table and chairs at appropriate heights, and even a small food preparation area with what looked like human-compatible utensils. "How did you?" he began. "We received your distress signal 4 hours ago," Carathel explained. "Our database included information on human requirements. I took the liberty of fabricating appropriate accommodations." She moved to a refrigeration unit scaled for her size and extracted a container. "I have also prepared sustenance based on human nutritional needs." She set the container on the human-sized table, and David approached cautiously. Inside was a meal that looked surprisingly normal: protein, vegetables, what might have been bread. It was carefully arranged, almost artfully presented. "You made this?" David asked, surprised. "Prepared it, yes. Our fabricator did the actual synthesis based on human food database entries." Carathel settled into a chair sized for her, moving with careful precision to avoid looming over him. "I hope it is acceptable. Carnathi cuisine tends toward rawer preparations that might not appeal to human sensibilities." David picked up a fork, perfectly sized for human hands, and took a tentative bite. It was good, really good, actually. "This is amazing," he said honestly. "Thank you." "You are welcome." Carathel watched him eat with those intense amber eyes, and David found himself becoming more comfortable under her gaze. There was something almost protective in the way she observed him, like a guardian making sure he was properly cared for. "Can I ask you something?" David ventured between bites. "Of course. Why did you become a doctor? I mean, for a species like the Carnathi, with your strength and hunting heritage, it seems like there would be other career paths that would be more natural," Curathel's expression shifted, becoming something softer. An interesting question. You assume that because we are predators, we must be warriors or hunters. I didn't mean. No offense is taken, she assured him. It is a common misconception. Yes, the Carnathi evolved as apex predators. We are strong, fast, and our instincts are tuned for the hunt. But we are also intelligent, emotional beings capable of empathy and compassion. She leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on a passionate quality. My strength, which could be used to harm, can also be used to heal, to carry the injured, to operate on beings both large and small with precision that defies my size. Being a predator does not mean I must be defined by violence. David found himself staring at her, his earlier fear forgot. That's actually beautiful. Curathel's amber eyes widened slightly, surprise flickering across her features. You think so? Yeah. I mean, humanity has always struggled with that balance, too. We have the capacity for incredible violence, but also for remarkable compassion. Sometimes I think our best qualities come from choosing to be more than what evolution designed us to be. A slow smile spread across Curathel's face, revealing teeth that were definitely designed for tearing meat. But somehow, in that moment, David wasn't afraid. I have studied many species, Lieutenant Tors, but I confess that humans fascinate me most. You are simultaneously fragile and resilient, fearful and brave, small yet capable of extraordinary things. You know, David said, setting down his fork, when I saw you in the corridor, I thought I knew what I was dealing with, a carnivorous giantess who probably saw me as either prey or a nuisance. And now? Carathel asked, her head tilting again in that curious gesture. Now I realize I was only half wrong. Oh, her tone was amused. Which half? You are carnivorous, David grinned. And you definitely are a giantess, but you're not a threat, you're a healer. Someone who answers distress calls and fabricates human-sized furniture and makes sure stranded survey pilots get proper meals. Carathel laughed, a deep, rich sound that seemed to resonate through the room. I suppose that is accurate, though I must confess something to you, Lieutenant. What's that? When I first saw you in the corridor, I also made assumptions. Her amber eyes met his with unexpected vulnerability. I thought you would be like most species who encounter Carnathi for the first time, either too terrified to function properly or aggressively defensive to compensate for fear. I prepared myself for either response. And, David prompted, and you surprised me. Yes, you were afraid, but you were also polite, honest, and willing to overcome that fear. In the hour you have been aboard, you have asked thoughtful questions, shown genuine curiosity, and treated me as an individual rather than as a representative of a frightening species. She stood, moving to a viewport that looked out into the star-scattered darkness of space. Do you know how rare that is, Lieutenant? Most beings never get past their initial fear. They interact with us out of professional necessity but never truly see us as people, just as dangerous predators in civilized clothing. David rose from his chair and moved to stand beside her at the viewport. Even standing, the top of his head barely reached her shoulder, but somehow the size difference felt less important now. I was terrified when I first saw you, he admitted. Everything in my brain was screaming danger, but then you knelt down to talk to me at eye level. You explained my fear without judgment. You prepared a space for me, made me food, tried to make me comfortable. Those aren't the actions of a monster. They're the actions of someone who genuinely cares. Carathel looked down at him, and in her amber eyes, David saw something that transcended species differences. Loneliness, perhaps, or hope, or maybe just the universal desire to be understood. Your ship will require 3 days of repairs, she said quietly. If you are willing, I would enjoy your company during that time. It is rare that I have the opportunity to speak with someone who sees past their initial impressions. I'd like that, David replied honestly. Plus, I have about 1,000,000 questions about Carnathi medicine, your homeworld, and how you manage to perform surgery with hands that size. Another laugh rumbled from her chest. And I have questions about human stubbornness, your species' apparent immunity to common sense when faced with danger, and how beings with such short lifespans manage to accomplish so much. Sounds like we'll have plenty to talk about, David smiled. Over the next 3 days, as the sanctuary's repair crew worked on the Pathfinder, David and Curathel spent hours in conversation. He learned about Carnathi culture, their complex social structures, and the challenges they faced in a galaxy that often feared them. She learned about human history, our tendency toward reckless exploration, and our stubborn refusal to accept limitations. He discovered that Curathel wrote poetry in her spare time, delicate, beautiful verses that seemed at odds with her powerful frame. She learned that David played guitar and had brought one on his survey mission, leading to an impromptu concert where a 3.5-meter carnivorous alien giantess sat completely still, tears streaming down her face as he played human folk songs. On the third day, as David prepared to depart, Curathel walked him to the docking bay. They stood in front of the repaired Pathfinder, and the silence between them felt heavy with unspoken words. "Thank you," David said finally, "for everything, for the rescue, for the hospitality, for showing me that first impressions are usually incomplete." "Thank you as well," Curathel replied, "for reminding me that connection is possible even between the most unlikely individuals." David extended his hand. A human gesture she'd learned meant friendship and respect. Curathel carefully wrapped her much larger hand around his, her grip gentle despite her obvious strength. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "The galaxy is smaller than it used to be," David said with a smile. "And I seem to have a talent for getting into situations that require rescue. So yeah, I think you probably will." As the Pathfinder detached from the sanctuary and began its journey back to human space, David looked back at the massive rescue vessel and the even more massive doctor standing in the observation window, watching him leave. He'd been right, he reflected. He was only half wrong about Curathel. She was carnivorous. She was a giantess. But she was also kind, brilliant, lonely, and beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with physical appearance. And he was already planning how to accidentally end up in her sector of space again. For science, of course.